family. Whether it's the one we were born into or the one we chose for ourselves, you ain't got much in this world if you ain't got family. No one knows that better than Superman, a.k.a. Clark Kent, proud adopted son of the Kent family of Smallville, Kansas, the very salt of the earth. But it's not all cookouts and touch football with the cousins or, barn raisings and rodeos, whatever the hell they do for fun in Smallville. Family can also complicate your life. Like when your sister calls you at 2 a.m. to come bail her out of jail for setting fire to her ex's car, or when you have to lie to the administrator of an assisted living facility about your dad having dementia so they'll take him because you're tired of him living with you, or when you have to take a series of journeys back in time to discover why someone in the present is trying to kill cousins you've never even met. Superman knows all about that. The last one, anyway. Not sure about the first two. I don't think he has a sister. And you're about to know all about it too, because it's the premise of the lead feature of Action Comics number 132, the May 1949 edition, a story titled The Secret of the Kents. We open on this cool, moody title page depicting a mysterious masked axeman chopping down the Kent family tree, which is helpfully labeled as such, while Superman flies into the rescue. Very exciting, but shouldn't Superman be aiming for the dude with the axe? I guess his plan is to catch the tree before it falls and put it back upright, which I'm sure would work under ordinary circumstances thanks to his power of super balance, plus an infusion of solar energy from his body that would cause the tree's hacked up trunk to regrow at a highly accelerated rate. But take out the dude with the axe first, man. If you don't stop him, he's still chopping. Anyway, that's just the title page. It doesn't actually happen. It's only a metaphor. The real story begins on the next page when Superman stops a car that's speeding out of control through the city. The driver of the car is dead, shot to death by a hilarious but deadly booby trap that someone rigged up in the back seat, which fired a fatal bullet as soon as the poor guy started driving. The victim's last name is Kent. Superman's like, that's weird. Later, he prevents a woman from being shot by an unseen assailant. Her name turns out to be Kent as well. Superman's like, how peculiar. Then, while working in his office at the Daily Planet, someone takes a shot at Clark Kent through the window. The bullet hits him and bounces off to the amazement of the copy boy who's standing right there. Clark improvises some bullshit about the bullet hitting the lucky coin in his pocket so the kid doesn't immediately jump to the conclusion that he's actually Superman, then writes a front page story about the mysterious killings and attempted killings of people named Kent. Then Clark receives a letter from someone named Ruth Dorgan. The letter refers to a long-running feud between the Dorgan and Kent families. Ruth claims to be the last of the Dorgan line and declares that he will take out all the remaining Kents to finally settle the feud. Clark does some research looking through Kent family records in the Kent family section of the library, I guess. It never says where this is. And he finds something interesting in the diary of one of his great-grandfathers, an entry that has just recently been erased. Using his supervision, Clark reads the erased entry, which tells of how the Dorgan and Kent feud was settled amicably. So, if the feud was resolved generations ago, why does Ruth Dorgan want to revive it and use it as an excuse to commit murder now? Good question. Clark does some more scouring of the family papers and finds 3 letters from 3 different ancestors belonging to 3 different generations, each of which mentions the appearance of a strong, red-caped stranger. Well, obviously that's Superman. And just as obviously, this means there's only one way to solve the mystery of why Ruth Dorgan wants to kill the Kents. Superman has to do some time traveling. It's okay, though. If you're worried about Superman irrevocably altering the past, don't. Those mentions of Superman in the old family letters mean that his time traveling is meant to happen. It's a predestination paradox. He can go back in time and do whatever the hell he wants. But before he does, he gathers up the other surviving members of the Kent family, his cousins, Digger Kent, the gold prospector, Louis Pasteur Kent, the country doctor, Titus Kent, eccentric former millionaire who lost most of his money in the Depression, and his manservant Hubert, and Carol Kent, who we've already met. She's the one who almost got shot at the beginning. Superman deposits his cousins safely in a fortress he has built especially for the occasion to ensure none of them get killed while he's traveling through time to find out who's trying to kill them. For those of you who might be wondering why it's just Clark's cousins that he rounds up to protect, remember, this is the Golden Age, and Pa and Ma Kent are both dead by the time Clark becomes Superman. It was the 1940s. Everybody smoked and drank and died of heart attacks when they turned 50 as God intended. With his cousins safe and secure in his fortress of fellowship, he races into the past. As all Superman fans know, all you need to do in order to travel to the past is go really, really fast. His first stop is the year 1878. He adorns an era-appropriate mustache, so he won't look out of place, and drops in on his grandfather, Hiram Kent, the inventor. Hiram is about to die while testing his current invention, the airplane, because the airplane isn't supposed to be invented until 25 years later. Superman soon realizes the problem. Hiram is attempting to power his airplane using a steam engine, while the Wright brothers will eventually propel their flying machine using a gasoline engine. So, the Wright brothers just ripped off Superman's grandfather? Because that airplane Hiram's piloting looks exactly like the Wright brothers' flyer. All the Wright brothers did was swap out the coal-fired iron steam engine for a gas engine, and they got all the credit for inventing heavier-than-air flight? That seems entirely consistent with human history, actually. Anyway, Superman rescues Hiram from a fiery death, and a grateful Hiram introduces Superman to his son, Silas, who will one day be Superman's adopted father. I know what most of you are thinking. Wait! Superman's father is named Jonathan. Remember, this story is from 1949, and that being the case, there are two very important things to keep in mind. One, they hadn't settled on names for Pa and Ma Kent yet, and two, nobody gave a shit. The Kent's names became Jonathan and Martha a few years after this, and, as incredible as it sounds, they didn't publish a 12-issue limited series to explain why Jonathan's name wasn't Silas and Martha's name wasn't Mary anymore. They just stopped using the old names and started using the new ones. Anyway, Hiram is a terrible inventor. He can't even get his stump puller to work right, though Superman does take pity on him and use his superpowers to make it look like the stump puller works, which is actually a really cruel thing to do, because Superman's going to leave this time period soon, and the stump puller's not going to work anymore, and Hiram's going to have no idea why, but hey, predestination paradox. It's all happening the way it was supposed to. Superman figures the Kent killer's motive isn't tied to Hiram, so, after taking a second to blow off P.T. Barnum, who just so happens to be passing by and tries to recruit Superman into the circus, Superman races further into the past, this time stopping in the year 1824. After giving himself some bushy sideburns, so he doesn't attract attention, he meets his ancestor, Joshua Kent, a barge captain on the Erie Canal. Superman gives Joshua a hand and his horses a break by pulling the barge to its destination so that Joshua can deliver his cargo and receive his payment, a valuable block of aluminum, which, Superman explains in a helpful aside directly addressing us, is worth a lot of money here in 1824 because they haven't yet invented the inexpensive modern method of manufacturing aluminum, which will make it cheap and abundant. A brick of aluminum from 1824 that would be worthless in 1949 isn't much of a motive for murder either, so Superman travels back in time once more, stopping in the year 1779. He buys himself a wig, so he'll look like he belongs here, and pays a visit to Eli Kent, the blacksmith. He applies for a job at Eli's shop, and using his superpowers, shoes 100 horses for the Continental Army in no time flat. General George Washington himself arrives to collect the horses. Unfortunately, the army is broke at the moment, so Washington can't afford to pay Eli. Instead, he writes him an IOU, promising Eli or his descendant the sum of $2,000 plus interest. Eli decides to hang on to the promissory note as a memento and conceals it in the barrel of an old gun he keeps above his fireplace. Superman realizes this could be the killer's motive. If the note is still there in 1949, with interest it would be worth a fortune. He grabs the note and tries to take it with him to the future, but he can't. The note belongs in the past, and not even Superman can change the course of history. Damn, if that rule was in effect on Star Trek, it would have saved Captain Kirk so much trouble. Since he can't take the note with him back to 1949, Superman does the next best thing and carves a giant copy of it into the rock face behind a waterfall. Well, that's what I'd do. Returning home to 1949, as all Superman fans know, all you need to do in order to return to the present from the past is go really, really fast. Superman brings his cousins to the waterfall, where a perfectly timed rock slide reveals the copy of the promissory note, which is instantly recognized by Hubert, the manservant of Cousin Titus. Hubert confesses that he found the promissory note in the barrel of the old gun, which is now owned by Titus. His plan was to kill off the other surviving Kents until Titus was the only one left. Then, when Titus died, Hubert would inherit the estate, including the promissory note, which he could cash in to claim the fortune. There is no such person as Roof Dorgan. Hubert invented him so he could use restarting the Dorgan and Kent family feud as a cover for the murders. With the case closed, the Kent cousins are joined for the first time by Clark, who explains that Superman had him hidden away somewhere else because he's Superman's special favorite. Cousin Carol says, "Well, Clark, now that you're the next descendant, what will you do with the promissory note?" And Clark says, "Why, return it to the government, of course. We Kents have already been paid enough by being allowed to live in this great country." How patriotic, but hang on. Why does Clark get to decide what happens to the note? Titus had the gun the note was stashed in, so wouldn't the note still belong to him? Hubert was the one who was killing or trying to kill people. Titus didn't know anything about it. And he lost his money in the Depression. It sounds like he could use a payday. At the very least, shouldn't all the surviving cousins discuss the matter and decide as a group what happens to the note? Cash it in, split the money evenly between them, or I don't know, agree on a charity and donate it in all of their names? Nope, too late. Clark gave it back to the government. It seems we've all been paid enough simply by living here. So the next time you have a bill come due that you can't afford to pay, just withdraw some cash from that living in a great country allowance, because it sounds like there's a lot of money in that account. The Secret of the Kents is written by Bill Finger, penciled by Wayne Boring, and inked by Stan Kay, and all joking aside, I like it a lot. It's the sort of casually far-fetched story we typically associate with the Silver Age, but of which there are plenty of examples in the Golden Age too. This adventure of Superman is only 12 pages long, but it's packed with delightfully absurd details. The gun booby trap in the car that kills the first Kent and gets Superman started on the case. Who does that? You know whose car it is? You obviously have access to it. Why not just climb into the back seat and wait for them to get in the car, then pop up and strangle them to death like a normal person? Or better yet, just shoot the guy from a distance. As with Carol Kent, the second intended victim. If Superman hadn't happened to be close by, that would totally have worked. What about the letter that Clark receives, supposedly from Roof Dorgan, claiming the crimes were part of the old family feud? Why would Hubert, eventually revealed as the culprit, write that letter at all? Why go through the trouble of crafting an elaborate fiction around the crimes? If all he wanted was to bump off the other surviving Kents so that Titus would have an indisputable claim to the promissory note, why not just do that? All the letter does is get Clark Kent even more invested in solving the crime. Who are you, the Zodiac Killer? Don't write letters to reporters about it. Just shoot people. Or, in what is probably my favorite of the many ludicrous little touches in this story, the running gag of the facial hair Superman sports in order to look more in step with the times while he's in the past. Because a muscle-bound guy in a bright blue unitard and a red cape walking around clean-shaven in 1878 is going to attract a lot of unwanted attention, but slap a mustache on him and he fits right in. It's totally absurd. It's played absolutely straight as though it's the most sensible thing in the world, and I love it. There are others, but beyond those little details, the most ridiculous element of the story is how flimsy the justification is for Superman's time travel adventure. The title promises something mysterious and extraordinary. The secret of the Kents. What could it be? The opening narration sets a breathless tone, as opening narrations for stories like this always do, telling us Clark Kent had to disappear in the present so that Superman could appear in the past, 170 years in the past, to bring back the fantastic answer. But why does Superman have to travel back in time? To find out why the villain who's trying to kill the Kents is doing that? He finds evidence that whoever is responsible for the attacks on his cousins is only using the Dorgan-Kent family feud as a cover for the true motive, the erased journal entry, establishing that the feud is over, right? So instead of investigating further in the present, he decides the best avenue of investigation is time travel. That's like the second thing he does to find out who the attacker is. He goes through his family papers, then on the basis of what he discovers there, he jumps straight to, gotta go snoop around in 1878. Okay, it's a bit of a different scenario than it would be for you or me, given how easy time travel is for the Golden Age Superman. Even so, Superman immediately commits to a ridiculously complicated solution to a fairly straightforward mystery. To me, that's a big part of the story's charm, but imagine if Superman told Batman, the world's greatest detective, about this little adventure. What would that conversation be like? They'd be there in the Fortress of Solitude. Batman just dropped by so he can pick up some Sinatra tickets that Clark promised to get for him through the Daily Planet. Sure, Batman's a millionaire, but he didn't get rich by paying for shit he didn't have to, right? Anyway, they're just kind of standing around, shooting the breeze, and Batman says, "So, did I read something about you getting shot at the other day?" And Superman says, "Yeah, someone was stalking members of the Kent family. One of my cousins was killed, and another had an attempt made on her life. Fortunately, I was able to get the others to a safe house and crack the case thanks to some good old-fashioned detective work. You used your connections at the Daily Planet and the police department to investigate your cousins and see if any of them had the motive, means, and opportunity to take out the others?" "No, I used my super speed to travel into the 19th and 18th centuries and visit a few of my ancestors based on some old letters I found." "Time travel was an option and you didn't just go back to right before the first crime was committed and catch the culprit in the act?" "I had a mustache." Indeed he did. And whiskery sideburns. And a colonial wig. But it doesn't matter what period-accurate hairstyle he adopts. For the Golden Age story, this wonderfully preposterous, not to mention, the cape and the blue suit with the big S on it, there's simply no disguising the best Superman ever.